Hi, this is Jill from the North Woods. Well, we have had a good week. I lost 1.8 pounds this week. The shocking thing is that yesterday it was 3 pounds and today it went to 1.8. Boy, it has been up and down just for weeks. And it's good though to break out of that cycle, and hopefully I'm going to be out of the 180s soon. The better news for me was I went to buy the hiking pants that I just got, I don't know, maybe 5 weeks ago, I forgot when it was, but not that long ago. And I had gotten into 18, and those particular pants, they do run a little bit large, but I tried on the 16s because I thought I just can't go on vacation with one pair of hiking pants. The 16s were too big. I bought the 14s. Now I know these pants again run a little large, but wow, 14s. Medium shirts, 14 pants, that's amazing. Like I said, going from 4X to all the way to this. So even though I didn't lose a lot of weight so far this month, it is a good amount of size loss. And now I'm officially on vacation, which is why I'm dressed like this. My friend Em and I, who we do Buzz, Blossom, and Squeak podcast, went out birding. And we have been birding nonstop since I went on vacation, let's call it Saturday. Bird watching and hiking and walking around, and whew, I always remember how much this is, but it's fun. It is fun to get out. And the second thing that was exciting, like a non-scale success, is I remember last year I went hiking with my friend when we went camping, which we're going to do again in June. I was exhausted. I couldn't haul myself up hills, and it wasn't better. And I was so disappointed. And I can tell you now, it's better. I am keeping up with my friend. She walks very, very fast, and I'm not huffing and puffing. I'm not tired at all. I mean, I'm tired now because I've been doing this now for 3 days, but not like I was. So I am completely pleased with the progress I've made in being able to hike, move around. And I thought too, I sometimes feel weird right now because I am so much thin. I talked about how like I sit in the church pew and I don't feel smaller. Well, when I was hiking around today, I felt at first like I'm unstable. Like maybe I don't feel like I'm myself in this weight. I don't know. It was really dumb. But then I realized I'm more agile. There were some rocks we had to navigate through. And I'm like, before I felt very loose. I felt very unstable on the rocks. And maybe my weight was making me feel unstable. And I crushed those rocks. I went across them. No problems. And it felt good. So the hiking problem I complained about last year, over with. I am now able to hike up hills and not be destroyed by them like I used to be. And that just feels great. I really need to start working on my cardio more. I like weightlifting. I really enjoy strength training in general, or resistance training. Boy, I just can't bring myself to love cardio, except when I'm going outside in a bike. And like I said, I keep threatening this, but biking season is here. So now we're going to talk about a topic I never really thought I had to talk about, but I think I do have to talk about it because I think that this is the problem a lot of people are having. This is a problem that a lot of people have problems with. And so when I was starting to think about what kind of questions you might have out there, is the TMI poop question. There you go. The poop question. And as I mentioned before, I haven't had many side effects. I feel a little tired right after I take my shot, which I took today, and then went out bird watching, and it wasn't terrible. My energy levels are better than they used to be. I think because I'm not hauling around the weight. But the one thing that kind of gets you all the time is how it changes your digestive system. And that's how the drug works. So the way these drug systems work is that they have everything moving through your system much more slowly. That helps you feel full longer. That also slows down the blood sugar as it goes through the system because it's not coming in this rush of digestion. Everything is slower. But then that also means it is going down the digestive system also much slower. And as it's happening, more water is getting absorbed from your poop back into your system again. And so it can make some changes not only to the way you poop, but the how the poop is. So we're going to talk about that. But that has a lot to do with why we feel full longer and why some of the drug works in certain ways. And what I found with it is, well, and like I said, too much information, but I know you want to know because you're taking this drug. I had problems with diarrhea before this diet. I would eat spicy foods. I would eat foods that were too greasy. I would eat foods that just disagreed with my stomach, and I would have troubles the other way. And when I started taking this shot back in, now it's going to be June 24th of last year, that'll be my anniversary this year, is that all of a sudden I was normal. So this whole time, it suddenly made me more normal. And so I didn't have really a problem. But I kept up with my fiber. I kept up with my water. I drink 96 ounces of water every day. And those two things helped everything just work out great. The one time I had problems, and if you probably watched it back when I went camping last summer, is that I didn't maybe get enough fiber, but I know I didn't get enough liquid. And when I got home, it all felt like a big lump in my gut. I just felt good, in my gut system. And what had happened, and this made sense as I was reading about it, is because it's been so much time in there, the water gets removed from it. And this is the second problem, besides people sometimes feeling diarrhea when they eat the wrong foods, sometimes getting constipated, which is, I think, primarily what people feel, is that it also can have less water in it. And someone on Reddit described it as it turns it all like into a big clump of straw inside your gut. And I think that's kind of a good analogy, but it gets dense and it gets hard. And if you don't go regularly, then you start to have problems. And this is where I think sometimes people have what they call intestinal blockages. And that's what I started to feel like last year after I went camping. What was going on with me? Something was going wrong, and I think it was getting that way. And what I did to fix it is a couple of things. Made sure I got enough fiber. I increased the amount of fiber, so I was taking more and more fiber that was there. I was also making sure that I had enough water in my system. And the reason that the water is important is that with increasing the fiber and drinking more water, it will help keep everything, like I said, TMI, softer. It'll keep everything softer. And that's what you're looking for, particularly if everything is going through your system much more slowly and the water is getting leached out. And so having more water in your system can help. And then the other part of it is just making sure that you have a good nutritional balance in general. This is a problem a lot of people have. I remember Maisie Gray ended up going on Ozempic for an award show, and then she flew to Mexico City or something like that for a concert, and she started screaming at the top of her voice. There's videos of it out on YouTube. I have to poop. I have to poop. And she got diarrhea. And so some people are getting constipation. Some people are getting harder poop. She got diarrhea, and some people get that. And it seems to me that as I've been reading about it, people will say, well, I can eat everything. I go out and I have burgers. I eat what I always eat. And it's super greasy, and it doesn't matter. I'm still losing weight, but I have terrible diarrhea, and my stomach is upset all the time. And I think that's what it is. I know that when I eat foods that are not to what I'm usually eating. So usually not right now, I'm eating a very low greasy diet. I'm eating very healthy foods. But if I go out with my friends and we have something and I try to figure out something to eat, it seems like I get diarrhea from that. And so some people complain about that. And then other people complain about nausea going along with it, or even as far as vomiting. I have never had any of those two things. But to me, it seems the only time I feel nauseous is when I eat food that disagrees with me. And right now, I was not, I don't want to say picky about food, but I didn't like really spicy foods before. And I liked greasy foods before. Now I can't even tolerate it. And it doesn't even appeal to me anymore. So this even can change what you like and what you think you like. But again, if you eat too many foods that are bad for you, greasy, too spicy, you can get nausea and vomiting and feeling generally upset in your stomach. And so part of it has to do with just the way the drug works. So in this particular case, when you start taking this drug, it can stimulate the gut, what they call erratically, that when you have a dose, suddenly things go through your system. And I noticed that when I increased in dose, that's when I would tend to have the most problems with diarrhea, is right at that increase of dose. When I have not had enough liquid or not had enough fiber, that's when I start having it the other way. And sometimes, like I said, this is just hard to talk about, but you get both. You start out with constipation, you can't go and you don't feel like going. And sometimes you just feel like there's a big lump in your gut. And then once you do go, you keep going, that you go. And then a few hours later, now you have diarrhea and now you can't stop. So somehow it's almost like a traffic jam happened. And as soon as the traffic jam is cleared by the police, then suddenly the traffic is flowing too fast. Does that work as an analogy? Okay. So that's kind of what I get is sometimes I have been in that position where I get a little constipated and then I also get diarrhea right after it. So they can happen together. It tends to happen more early on. And like I said, sometimes when I change dose. So then the other part of it is I go less frequently. Like I said, too much information. Thank you, internet, for being forever. But I used to be regular, that I could go like pretty much the first thing in the morning, every morning, and that was it. And I never had to worry about it. Now, I don't really focus on it. I do keep track of it because I am worried. My dad died of intestinal blockage. And so I do worry about that if I don't keep track. And so I keep track to make sure. And if I hit 3 days, if I go as far as 3 days, then is when I start taking intervention. So right now, it seems like I go sort of every 2 to 3 days. I find that fine. I go past that 3 days, I start acting. And we'll talk about what I do to act here just in a moment. So if I, like I said, feel bloated or if I feel nauseous, then I eat just very calm food. I maybe even will take like a Tums or something, Pepto-Bismol for my stomach, because sometimes gas can get into your system. And because it's not flowing out of your system as regularly, you can feel a little bit bloated. So I just deal with every issue I have right at that minute. And if you start getting constipated and you start getting back up, and like I said, you sort of feel like you got a big lump in your gut, that's when you can start getting cramping in your stomach. And you can feel worse. You can lose your appetite entirely. Some people report that they can get just problems going in general. And so that's the idea, is that you want to treat it as it comes. So let's say I go past the 3 days and now I'm kind of, okay, we're in interaction mode. There's a couple of things that I do. So the first thing that I do is I try to eat fiber, and I try to eat, I think, 29 grams of fiber every day. I make sure I get more than that. That's thing number one I do. But I also, usually if I'm having trouble, that's because I've been not getting my liquids in. Now, let me give you an example. I'm on vacation this week. I've been out hiking every morning. And usually when I'm working, I am on bottle number 3. I have 24-ounce bottles right now. Because I've been out hiking all day, I'm on bottle number 2. And so I'm behind in my water. And so what am I going to do? I'm going to spend the rest of this night putting away the water. So that's one thing I do, is I increase my water. Sometimes I try to drink even like warm liquids, teas. I like tea in the wintertime. That has sometimes helped as well. I don't know what that is, but tea has helped. There's things out there, too, that you can get fiber in. Everything from chia seeds to fruits like berries. I like pears. Pears are my kind of go-to fruit right now. So if I feel like I haven't gone in a while and I want to start kicking up my natural fiber a little bit, because I eat a lot of the chicory stuff, but I like to get the natural fiber in too, I'll eat berries and pears. Those are my 2 big things I like to go to. But then there are, like I said, fiber pills. I have something called Fiber Care. I just got it off of Amazon. Each little chewy tab is about 2 grams of fiber. And so I don't like to take that very often. But if I feel like I have not gone in a while, I start taking some of it. And that seems to work like a charm for me. There's something called psyllium husk, which I don't know what that is, but it's fiber. And so it's something that you can take in addition as a fiber supplement. The other part that I try to do is that I don't go too far with fiber. From what I hear from reading, like I said, on Reddit, and I'm not a doctor and they're not doctors either, is that if you are having constipation problems and you don't take enough water with your fiber, it will make your constipation worse because it's just going to add to the sawdust that is sitting in your gut. And so now it is causing more material to back up, and now you're in trouble. The other thing that you can do if you're feeling constipated is you can go for a walk. Walking helps wake up your guts. And I mentioned before, I had surgery back maybe 15 years ago. And what's the first thing they have you do when you have surgery? It used to be like, you just rest, recuperate. Now they're like, as soon as you're up and you're inside your brain again, they have you get up and go for a walk. Because walking wakes up your guts, and they want your guts working after you've had surgery. Same thing here. If you go for just a gentle walk, if you do a little bit of mild exercise, that will also help your guts wake up a little bit too. And then the very last thing I do, and this is kind of a silly thing, is I take magnesium because I used to have trouble sleeping. And I say used to. I was, let's say 15 years ago, I was a full-blown insomniac. I didn't get more than, I would say, 2-3 hours of sleep a night. And if I got 4 hours of sleep, I felt like I was the queen of the world. Then I started doing a bunch of things, which this podcast episode is not about, to fix my insomnia. And so it got much better. But then what I tried to do is take magnesium because a friend of mine recommended it. Magnesium citrate is what they put in, I think, when you go in and get surgery or need your colon completely emptied out. They give you magnesium, and that cleans you out. And so magnesium glycinate is magnesium that will not lubricate the insides of your gut. Let me put it that way. What magnesium citrate does is it draws water into your guts, into your intestine, and makes the whole thing more lubricated. I also notice that my system gurgles quite a bit when I take magnesium citrate. So every night before I go to bed, I decide which one of those two I'm going to take. Glycinate when I don't have to poop or don't want to poop the next day, and citrate when I do. And so every night I go to bed and I sort of decide between one of those two vitamins. And that usually does the trick right there. I can kind of control that I go often enough, but also which days I go. So let me give you an example. On Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I go to the gym. I have meetings with my trainer on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Today, I was going and hiking at the crack of dawn because I'm on vacation. And I don't want to have problems when I'm out there hiking without a bathroom. But tomorrow, we're not going hiking because it's supposed to be raining. So what am I going to do tonight? I'm going to take citrate tonight, whether I wanted to or not, just to make sure that I take it often enough. So I basically schedule magnesium citrate on the days where I don't have to wake up early, I don't have someplace I have to go, and I'm not going to be somewhere in the middle with an outhouse in the middle of nowhere where I'm not sure I'm going to find a bathroom. Like I said, too much information. And then I take magnesium glycinate when I just want help sleeping, but I don't want that side effect of pooping. So there you go. And I just sort of manage it between the fiber, the magnesium, the water I take, making sure I walk around and I exercise around. Then I've been able to control this really well. Like I said, the only time I ever really got into problems is when I went camping and I didn't realize I was having a problem until I had a problem. The other part of it is there are things called stool softeners. That is called docusate sodium. I don't know what that is, but it's over the counter. A lot of people buy that. I have some in my cabinet, and I used that after I went camping the last time, and that helped. Laxatives are also out there. The doctors I've seen have prescribed laxatives to people, but there's a lot of over-the-counter stuff too. So it's really just balancing and making sure you don't go too far. I mentioned in my other podcast about the Greeks and saying nothing to excess. That's what I do, is I keep the water going, I keep the fiber going, I choose between the two magnesiums, and I keep watch on it. And if I go beyond that 3 days, then I start intervening more in order to make sure I go. But I haven't really had to do that other than that one time because I'm doing such a good job of eating and caring for myself along the way and drinking water. So it's important. It's one of those things that I think people don't really tell you when you're taking Mounjaro or GLP-1. However, it is something that you hear Hollywood stars and people who hate Mounjaro and hate GLP-1 talk about quite a bit. This is manageable. Someone said something like, oh, the only reason people are losing weight on Mounjaro is because it gives you diarrhea. And I'm like, that is not it, dude. You don't know what you're talking about. This is a manageable thing, but you're going to have to manage it by eating properly, getting enough fiber, getting enough water. And then if you, like I said, you want to, you can work with magnesium. If you want to, you can work with fiber pills, but always just keeping everything just right there in balance to make sure that you're just doing the right thing. And basically, if you get through that, you will keep a good constant going. You'll be okay, and you won't have emergency situations, and you won't have not where it's gone too long, and now you're in trouble too. And the other problem, and this is not so much where it's becoming a problem, is that, like I mentioned before, I used to be very regular. I'd get up in the morning and I would be able to go to the bathroom, and that would be it for the day, and I could sort of plan my day. And the problem can be sometimes now, and this is not a problem, is that things can be a bit unexpected. So right before I am going to go, I get a little bit of gas. And usually when I have that little bit of gas happen, that's almost my indicator. Within the hour, you're going to need a bathroom. And I don't want to get in that situation where I'm out hiking, where I'm in some place where I can't go. So I pay close attention to that. If I realize, this is the time, all of a sudden it decided, because right now it's not scheduled. It is not anywhere near close to schedule. And so even this week at church, all of a sudden I was sitting in the pew before church had even started. I didn't say this out loud, but I was thinking, oh no, I'm going to have to go. And so that's, I guess, not a problem, but it's something to just know. I don't have any control of it. I don't know when something's going to happen. And like I said, for someone like me who goes out hiking, maybe I'll go 3 to 6 to 9 miles and go out for a hike. You don't want to be caught in that situation where you're in the middle of nowhere. I mean, obviously there's things you can do about that, but just be a little bit more aware that you may have that situation where either you don't know when to expect it's coming, you get maybe a little bit notice that it's coming, so you can get yourself to a bathroom, hopefully. And I've been in situations where I'm like, I have to go. And my friend's like, oh, we're in shopping. We're going to be home in a half. Nope, I will be back. You just can't do much about that. So anyway, those are the problems that I've had with that. I've tried those particular things to try to make sure, like I said, I just don't want to get into that position like I was after camping where it gets too out of control. And I feel like right now, with my constant focus towards that I'm doing the right thing and I'm not having troubles overall. And there's my strategy right there, is preventing problems so that I don't come into problems and I can have more of a predictable routine as I'm treating my gut with a very predictable routine as well. I hope that helps. Like I said, really uncomfortable conversation to talk about, but I know this affects a lot of people. And I think that a lot of people, either because they're going one way or the other with that, end up leaving the drug because they feel it's unmanageable. But I think that with a little bit of preparation, a good diet, maybe drinking warm liquids, you can control this. So I hope that helps. Please let me know if you have anything that you would like me to talk about. Like I said, wasn't planning on doing this episode, but the more I started thinking about it, the more I started thinking I really need to talk about this. I asked a friend of mine who is also on this drug if she had anything to say on this particular topic, and she said, just be aware that if you had constipation problems before, this is going to make it worse. So that's something to prepare for too. And like I said, there's all sorts of things you can do between artificial fibers, pill form fibers, fruit fibers, drinking water, stool softeners, all those kinds of things that can help out. I hope you have a great week. I hope you're doing very well. I've gotten some messages from people who are just starting out. And you know what? I want to tell you that if you can keep yourself going in a healthy way, hopefully this will keep working for you and doing great things for you. I've seen so many people who have talked about problems, but they admitted that they ate the wrong way, they were doing the wrong things, and so not every case, because like I said, this drug affects everybody a little bit differently from each other. So I'm not saying anyone did anything wrong, but I'm so excited for your adventure. A year ago, or not a year ago, 9 months ago? Okay, 9 months ago, I started this adventure. I'm down all these pounds. I'm down all these sizes. I'm down from 4X pants and 3X shirts to 14 pants and medium shirts. This is something that can work, but don't believe this idea that you don't have to work towards it. You do have to work for it. Not so much, like I said, to lose the weight. You have to work for it to keep healthy on this drug. Please go ahead and subscribe, tell a friend about it, and say something in the chat channel. I love talking to everyone. YouTube has really been giving me this great experience of community, which I really enjoy. Have a great week.